Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah. And of course, we made it through the 9th of Av without any type of attack from Iran. That does not mean that nothing is in the works, nothing's in the plans. It's just there is a little bit more time, but who knows how long that's going to be. I was so encouraged yesterday. I just talked with Hanok. I just recorded with him, actually a day late right now with my program. But I was so encouraged yesterday that the report I saw originally was about 800 Jews up on the Temple Mount. Hanok saw another report about 3,000 were on the Temple Mount. Do not miss the significance of this, ladies and gentlemen, of what is happening. This is all about the Temple Mount. Is it about Israel? Yes. Is it about Jerusalem? Yes. But in the end, it is about who controls the Temple Mount. And so the very fact that there are Jews that are ascending the Temple Mount, openly praying. I saw the most incredible video yesterday of a group that was up there, and they were singing the Hatikvah. They were waving Israel flags. If there's the tragedy that happened just over 300 days ago with October 7th, it's hard to imagine that good could come out of that. But if there has been any good, it is this awareness and those that are going up and they're participating in prayers on the Temple Mount. This is just another aspect of the prophetic times that we are living in today. And so I encourage you to follow that. I know that in America, the next 80-something days are going to be wall-to-wall nonsense. And I don't say that the elections are nonsense, but the things that will go on in the next 80-something days are going to be over the top, incredibly crazy. And so be careful, just kind of be careful of how much we involve ourselves in the nonsense instead of just praying for the will of the Father to be done. All right, as we go into the book of Deuteronomy this week, it is the Torah portion of I Pleaded, beginning in Devarim chapter 3, verse 23. And there's a backdrop, okay? I know that this Torah portion, we go to the book of Genesis, and this happened over hundreds and hundreds of years. Exodus, over a time period. We get to Devarim, and some say this was one day. Others say this message of Moshe happened over a few day period, but we are witnessing the last days of this man's life, and I just continue to kind of have that as a backdrop in my memory, in my thought process as I read the words of this book, and it begins with a very interesting phrase. When it says, Adonai Elohim, then I pleaded with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, Adonai Elohim, you have begun to reveal your greatness to your servant and your strong hand, and it goes on from there. The word is more, I think would be better translated, you have begun to reveal your perspective, your presence, your plans, all of these things, but the word began is the one that I was trying to make some sense of this word this morning, because the word actually means has a connotation of weak or sickness or something similar. Actually, it even goes worse than that. And the only thing that I can really bring this into is that Moshe knew that everything that he had seen up until this point, and let's keep in mind that it was 40-something years ago that he was standing before a burning bush. He stood with a staff in his hand and watched the Reed Sea split. He was on the mountain with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh for 40 days and 40 nights. He has received the commandments, all of these things that have happened to this man's life. But no matter what has happened, he knows in his mind that what is ahead is going to make this that he has seen even look weak in comparison, almost sickly in comparison. Do we have that concept in our minds today? I mean, I can look back over the years, as many of you can, and see the things, remember the things that he has done. I mean, I could write books and books, I guess, but I don't think anybody would in this day read them, because, not only do you can't even do hardly a less than an hour video these days and hold people's attention. It's like, no, we want the shorts. Give it to us in 8 seconds or less in order to hold our attention. So who would do that? Who would read that? I'm not going to waste my time. But when we look back, I look back over the things that I've seen him do, and then consider that what is ahead of us. I mean, is that the words? I keep hearing these words this morning as I'm thinking through this. Eye is not seen, ear is not heard, neither is it entered into the heart of mankind, the things that he has prepared for us. I mean, most all of us probably on our top of the list of our favorite songs would be the song Imagine. I can only imagine. And I love that song, and I can cry to that song as well as anybody can. But in the end, I know that song is coming up even so short of what is in front of us and how we will then compare this to that. But moving on from there, it says, but in verse 26, but Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh was angry with me on account of you. He didn't listen to me. Adonai said to me, enough of you, don't say another word to me about this matter. Climb up onto Pisgah and you're going to die. There's the intriguing part of this is on account of you. Now, I do believe there is this a bit of a backdrop of frustration in Moshe's demeanor, in his delivery. How could there not be? I mean, this guy though he has gone through all these experiences in his life, he's still human. He still has the same emotions, the same disappointments. We see him over and over again, like, I just like to walk away from this thing, okay? But he doesn't. But then there's this realization maybe that the striking of the rock, was it that Moshe did this, or was there a prodding for him to fail in a way? Hear me out. For him to, in a way, fail because he needed to fail on account of you, or the word would be better translated, for your sake. We could say it this way. For your sake, I failed. Why? Because if Moshe had been allowed to bring the people of Israel out of Egypt, across the Red Sea, if he would have been allowed to take them across the Jordan River and into Canaan, this would have set up a dynasty for the lineage of Moshe. I mean, we see later on they're calling out for a king. We want to be like the other nations. We want to have a king over us. And I dare say that is still a mantra. It's a mantra in America today. We want a king over us. I heard somebody, not to get political, but I heard somebody say, the United States of America was founded on local representation. It was founded on your local politics, your community, your county, your state, to the point that Washington, D.C. was almost irrelevant in people's minds. But yet that has changed totally. And so with Moshe, he set this thing up originally to where the Torah was to be given out through the leaders of 10, the leaders of hundreds. And Moshe was kind of like, in a way, was to be like the figurehead there of, well, it finally got to me. So is this them desiring to have a king? How much? I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that alone. But if Moshe had have allowed them to go in, his dynasty would have been like a kingship. That it would have been from that point on the sons, the grandsons, the children of Moshe, and they would have. But we're the ones, because we all know, folks, the typical human nature is when enough time has gone by, the plagues, the things that happened, the splitting of the Red Sea. Oh, it was Moses that did that, and it was your grandfather that did it. The scripture is to set our mind, our focus on God in our lives, not a person in our lives. This happens still today. The dynasties of denominations, the dynasties of leaders, of teachers, that just continue on and continue on. And eventually it becomes about the person instead of the God. And that is something for us to guard ourselves against. Now, it goes on and he says, climb up to the top of the mountain and look out to the west, north, south, and east. Look, and the word look is again the word ray. Okay, if you haven't listened to me teach on this word, it's more perceive. It's not look with your eyes, but look with your spiritual being into something. Perceive what the Father is doing. You know, in today, as I'm recording, August 14th, 2024, are you watching the news? Or are you perceiving the events? Are you perceiving what the Father is doing? Or just, kind of doing the same as the talk shows there that are today, just pretty much repeating things over and over again? I said to Kathy last night, we were watching some of the news, and I said, if you turn the teleprompter off, most of these people could not put together a single sentence on their own. And the writers, it's like, couldn't we say that different today? But no, they don't have enough brain power to do that. Why? Because they don't perceive anything out of their own little life, their own little box. And how small is that? It's like America. I've traveled to many other countries, and America does not have, the United States does not have a real good image with the rank and file person. They look at us as a bunch of arrogant somethings. And, for the most part, they're right. Because Americans think that everything revolves around them. It doesn't. Everything revolves around what is happening in Israel. And so this word perceive is to look outside of yourself. Look outside of what you're seeing with your eyes. And so Moshe was taken up. He was told to go up to the mountain, and when you get there, I want you to look out. He was going to look to the north, toward Mount Hermon. He was going to look out toward the west, toward the Mediterranean. He was going to look toward the south, toward the Dead Sea and the Negev and the Arava. He was going to look over toward the east, the land that would be given to Manasseh, to Gad, to Reuben. He was going to see. The commentary is that this was the every tour guide, tour leader's dream. On a clear day, you can see. And we go up to Itamar, and there's a place called the Three Seas. And on a clear day, and I've actually been there a couple times when it was clear, you could see the Galilee, the Mediterranean, and the Dead Sea, all from this one spot. On a clear day, I was not there on that clear day. I was up where the mountains years ago in Jordan, the mountain range there, where Pisgah Mountains, where Moshe is buried somewhere in there, and I could actually see the Mediterranean. I mean, beautiful, beautiful sight. But what did Moshe really see? Is it that he saw the land of Israel? Did he see the Mediterranean, the Dead Sea, the Galilee, the Kinneret? Did he see all those things with his eyes? Or was he given the perception of the fruit of his labor? Was he shown in that day what it would be like 40 years later when the tribes are living in relative peace? The time of the after the death of Joshua. Did he see that time of fruit? Did he see into the kingdom? Did he see what the millennium would be like? Did he see what it would be that a temple would be rebuilt? Right there, Jerusalem in the distance, and the tribes gathered and living in the land. What did he see? I don't know. But I just wonder if he was given a greater glimpse into the future than what we've thought. Now it goes on. I'm going to go to chapter 4 and just kind of pick it up in verse 4. Hopefully you're going to read the context of all this. But you who stuck with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, are still alive today, every one of you. Those of you who clung, the word is to cling or to cleave. It is the same word is found in Proverbs chapter 18. There's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. It's that clingy thing. You wrap something in saran wrap, and what does it do? It clings to it. This is this word to adhere to stick to. And it's a reminder of the scripture that says, I think the words of Yeshua, he who endures to the end will be redeemed. The King James and most translations say saved, but he who clings, he who cleaves, he who endures, he who adheres to the end will be redeemed. My question today to each of us, including myself, is who are we clinging to? I was reminded, as I was talking to Barry yesterday, of going back to the 1980s and the failures of a couple of TV evangelists. And I remember hearing people in that day saying, they were, well, I'm just walking away from my faith. This person, their failure has shaken my faith, and I'm just walking away. What do we see in the Hebrew roots in Christianity today? People walking away. Churches. I mean, yeah, you got the mega church, but what about the corner church? on the edge of closing down. Messianic, Hebrew roots congregations that are no more. Why? Is it possible that it's because they were clinging to a teacher? Clinging to a leader? I mean, I walked through the 1980s with in fact, Kathy and I actually changed denominations from the Nazarene Church to the Assembly of God Church during the failure of one of those. I mean, these people that were a part of the church we had been a part, they're like, I mean, I could have said we're going to the denomination of the striped cats, and they would have gone, well, that's wonderful. But we were going to Assembly of God, the exact denomination that this person had been a part of. And I heard people say, my faith is shaken. And it just, those words resounded in me. How can your faith be shaken unless you are following a man? You're following the wrong man. It's the words of a friend of mine in Israel, who years ago, not even knowing really what I would be thinking about, he said, quoting that verse in the prophets of, in the last days 10 men shall grab the tzitzit of a Jew and say, take us with you. And he said to our group, in grabbing the tzitzit of a Jew, make sure you're grabbing the right tzitzit of the right Jew. If you have a hold of, if you're cleaving, if you're adhering, if you're clinging to any person's tzitzit with a greater grip than you are to the tzitzit of Messiah himself, you're going to fail. It is only those who clung to him. So my question is, who are you clinging to? Who am I clinging to? And next in line of the questions is my grasp firm enough? I mean, there's a couple of ways to grab the tzitzit. First of all, you can just kind of, hold it with a couple of fingers. You can do that with the thumb and a finger. You can hold the tzitzit. Or you can hold it more in your fist. Or you can wrap it in your hand. To where if someone tried to pull it out of your hand, it would leave a scar. That's the kind of grasp that we need today on the tzitzit of the Jew that we follow. Going down to chapter 27, chapter 27. Chapter 4, verse 27. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh will scatter you among, and this is the same wording that we will see when we get to Deuteronomy 33, I believe it is. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh will scatter you among the peoples and among the nations to which Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh will lead you away. And you will be left few in number. There you will serve gods which are the product of human hands, made of wood and stone, which can't see, hear, eat, or smell. However, from there you will seek Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your Elohim, and you will find him when you search for him with all your heart and being. In your distress, when these things have come upon you in the Acharit HaYamim, the last days, you will return to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your Elohim and listen to what he says, for Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh your Elohim is a merciful Elohim. He will not fail you, destroy you, or forget the covenant with which he swore to your ancestors. What is happening today? I mean, do you want me to put you in Scripture? We can do that. We'll do this again in Deuteronomy 30, 33, something right in that area. But this is what is happening. See, you and I, prophetically, have been scattered to the nations. Now, I mean, this was a revelation to me not that many years ago. I just thought, well, I'm an American. I'm from the South. Okay, got it. Just talking to Hanok a while ago, he's heading tonight, which is Wednesday night. They're going to Shechem, modern day occupied Nablus. Him and a group of others that are part of the High on the Har are going to the tomb of Joseph. And I said to him, tell my great-great-great-great-granddad hello for me. Because, see, I've been to various places. When I'm down in Florida, a lot of times we'll go to Bell, Florida, to the gravesite of my grandfather's parents and grandparents. I'll go if I'm in Jacksonville, I might go to the cemetery where my father, my couple of my grandparents, aunt, uncle are buried. If I'm over in Sopchoppy in the panhandle of Florida, I may go over to the cemetery and where my mother, my grandmother, and various others are buried. But the truth is, for you and I, if we had the opportunity today to go to Joseph's tomb, that's also the tomb of our ancestor. Is our thinking process that biblical? Okay, think about what I just said. Is my thinking process that biblical? That if I were to go and visit the tomb of Joseph, I would see that as my ancestor, been grafted in, as Ephraim and Joseph and Manasseh were grafted in. Those boys of Joseph's. They were grafted into, they were adopted into the family of Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov. Do we see ourselves with that kind of a lineage? And in the nations, when we have served our idols, our false gods, our false doctrines, our false festivals, all of a sudden he's going to begin to bring us back. And as James Dobson, to quote him again, as Dobson did the book, Turn Your Heart Toward Home. Is that a drawing that you're feeling in our day? With the wars and the rumors of wars and the politics and the earthquakes. Did you see that there was an earthquake in Lebanon? Right there at the beginning, I think it was right at the beginning of the ninth of Av, and it was around a military bunker. What's the chances of that, folks? The Almighty is stepping into history right now. He's always been there. He never left. It's still his story. I mean, it began as his story, and it will end up as his story, but it appears that there was some chapters in the book that he kind of stepped back and said, okay, let's see how they will do on their own. Not too good. But what has happened in the years, a friend of mine in Israel takes it back to the breaking down of the Berlin Wall. Maybe that was part of it. But we know 1948, 1967, 1973, all of these events that have happened. What is this about? This is about him stepping back into the book and saying, I've been in the shadows, but I'm no longer going to be in the shadows. I'm going to be out here in the highlighted words. So this is about today. And so a person that doesn't see what is happening on the Temple Mount is relevant. Well, what's happening over in Israel is irrelevant. Doesn't have an understanding. You cannot have a thought of understanding about this world today without those thoughts taking you to Israel, to the land, to the people, to the places, to what is going on. Because his focus is turning there, is our focus. Will we be able to cling to that focus in the next 80-something days that we have? It may be a challenge. We go then to the 10 words. Now, there's been all kinds of discussion through the years of, the 10 Commandments on government, land and city, in town squares and schools and whatever it is. Folks, I think the best thing to do would probably be to put the 10 Commandments back into churches. But how long has it been since the 10 Commandments were in? 1700 years ago, Constantine, the Catholic Church, changed the wording. They totally disregarded much of what the 10 Commandments are about. It says you're to not make yourselves a carved image of any kind or representation of anything in heaven above and the earth beneath or the water below the shoreline. Have you ever been into a Catholic church? I have in Europe. I don't really like going. I don't go to the Church of the Unholy Sepulchre when I'm in Israel. I don't go to the Onion thing over in the Kidron Valley. I don't like going to pagan temples. All right? And Catholicism broke that one with all the statues that are everywhere. The gargoyles. You go to Belgium, the Queen of Heaven. It's all over the place. And by the way, I'm not casting judgment here, but remember the Shabbat. Observe the Shabbat and set it apart as holy. Well, I can point my fingers to the church all day long about changing Saturday to Sunday, and I heard of all people, I heard a Methodist pastor the other day on YouTube or on Facebook or something. This came up, and it was just intriguing enough. And this guy stood up with his little backwards collar on, which I've never been able to understand. He's got his little backwards collar on, and he stands up in his pulpit, and he says to his church, Methodist church, guys, God never changed Saturday to Sunday. He said, I have been observing the biblical Shabbat for years. He says, and there's nowhere in the Bible that you can show me that it was ever changed. He says, and so what you should be doing, and he said these words. This is what struck me. He says, but I know that none of you are going to do this. What you should do is, we can come together on Sunday. Yeah, that's fine. We can come together, but you should be taking the day off on Shabbat, the seventh day. Now, in the end, he looked at the scripture and he says, now what the disciples were doing is, before they went to work on Sunday, they were gathering together and taking the sacrament. Okay, got a little work for us still here, Pastor, because that's probably not what they were, they were not gathering together on Sunday morning for communion. All right? Just not thinking that's what they were doing. But he, in his own words, said, I'm going to tell you what the truth is, but I know that you're not going to do it. Those words resonated, and I just was thinking, how in the world could you stand up there Sunday after Sunday knowing a group of people don't really care about what you say, are not concerned about what you say and are not looking for truth. But yet, I know of Messianic congregations that think it's okay for, well, after service, we'll just go out for lunch. Or, in the evening, let's go out for lunch. Or the only flight I could get was on Saturday. Guys, I hope I'm not talking to anybody I hope I'm not talking to anybody. But how serious are we about these commandments? If these commandments, Deuteronomy will tell us later on, these commandments are your life. How serious are we taking these commandments? Honor your father and mother. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. There was a guy years ago that went around and asked the question in churches, how many of you can recite for me the 10 Commandments? It was amazing how many people could not recite the 10 Commandments. So I ask you, cover it up. Hit pause for a moment. I can usually get 9, okay? I have to think through them a little bit. I usually get 9. Sometimes I'll hit 10. But how many of us could actually recite them? And how many of us can go to the end of it and say, that's my foundation for my life? That everything that I do in my life is based upon those words. All right, let's turn a corner. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevot Malkoto Leolam Vayed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed be your name, your glorious kingdom forever and ever. I know that the last part is an addition, that in the scripture it says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. That is what the Shema is. I like the rest of it as a reminder of other things. Why didn't he give this message in Genesis? Why was the Shema not revealed in Egypt? Why was the Shema not revealed on Mount Sinai? But it's all the way until the people are going into the land. To me, the Shema, as I think many of you know, is a very important thing. I have my alarm on my phone set at 9 o'clock, at 3 o'clock every day. Others set it at 12 o'clock too. That's great. But no matter where I'm at 9 in the morning, at 3 in the afternoon, I stop in whatever form I can. I may be in a golf course, okay? And I will kind of under my breath say the Shema, declare the Shema. These words have just become so incredible to me, so full of life, because it reminds me at least twice a day of what my life is really about. And that is declaring who He is. No matter what I'm doing. No matter if I'm on a golf course or I'm walking around in Walmart, which I have to do later, or maybe I'm at Lowe's, maybe I'm driving down the road, whatever it is, that twice a day these words bring me back to the reason for my very life. And that is to be a declaration of who He is. I've taught on the Shema a lot. I'm going to kind of skip over that today. And then the words of chapter 6 in, let's go down into, let's see, what is it, 22? Can't see what. 10. Yeah, looks like 22, right? When Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, has brought you into the land, he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, that he will give you cities great and prosperous, which you didn't build, houses full of all sorts of good things, which you didn't fill, water cisterns dug out, which you didn't dig, vineyards and olive trees, which you didn't plant, and you have eaten your fill. There was a statement by a president years ago, you didn't build that. You know, talking to business owners, you didn't build that. Idiot. Yes, we, you know, when I had my business, yes, I did build that business. You know, to say that somebody else did it, I never saw them sweat over anything. But there's coming a day, ladies and gentlemen, that you and I, those of us who cleave, those of us who adhere, those of us who cling to him, will be taken home. We will be the perception of Moshe. We will, I don't know how this is going to be. I mean, I've taught, I've heard messages on the greater exodus, and the more I think about it and the more I see it happening before our day, the less I think any of us have ever known about it. But what I do know is this. Yeshua said, I go to prepare a place for you. Now that's been, you know, I've got a mansion over the hillside and you know, all those things. But what was he talking about? It was his term of place. We degrade it in a way. Excuse me. We degrade the word place when we try to put that into a physical realm. Just my opinion. But the truth is that his work, his position is to prepare for us a spiritual place in the kingdom, which will then enter into a physical place in the kingdom. You may have to stop and think through that one a moment. But the scripture says that just as it was in the days of the Hebrews in the wilderness, they entered into the land and they lived in houses that they did not build. They harvested gardens that they had not planted. They drank wine from grapes of vineyards they had not planted. We can sit there in the kingdom and say, we didn't build this. He did. And I wonder how many of these towns in Judea, Samaria, these communities that are today occupied, how many houses in Jerusalem that are occupied, how many of those will we just be given to live in? Things that we didn't do. The only thing that we did is we said yes to him. And then we hung on with all that we had. Lastly, a verse in chapter 6, I go down to about 24. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh ordered us to observe all these laws, to fear Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, our Elohim, always for our own good, so that he might keep us alive as we are today. The word there would be translated very well as survive. Why will we survive? Those that endure to the end and are redeemed. Now maybe in your survival you may die, okay? But you will be there in that resurrection. But why will you be there in that resurrection? Why will there be those that walk into the kingdom? It will be a testimony of his word. Why are there people going today to the Temple Mount? As a testimony of his word. Why is there in Israel today as a testimony of his word? Why is he entering into this time in history and revealing himself as a testimony of his word? Ladies and gentlemen, today we can see his word coming to pass in our lives. We can see his word coming to pass in this thing we call history. On a daily basis, we can watch as he is revealing himself. And we can also watch as mankind as a whole is turning their back so they cannot see that revelation because they love the darkness greater than they do the light. Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing. See you again next week. And until then, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.